Jeff Allen. We're so glad that you've joined us. Just a few things about Pure Cars. Pure Cars was founded in 2007 with a mission of providing relevant information and improving the car buying experience. We're one of actually only 7 Google Premier SMB partners in the automotive space. And recently we were acquired in the latter half of 2015 by Raycom Media with the intent of bridging the gap between broadcast and digital advertising. We made the Inc. 5000 fastest growing list a couple years, and also were awarded the most innovative product at Digital Dealer's Tech Tank for our smart advertising inventory targeting tool, actually just a week ago. So we're very excited to share with you. Love to introduce our speaker today, Jeff Allen, who is the Director of Customer Experience here at Pure Cars. Jeff brings 15 years of automotive experience across all 3 tiers. He's managed the Southeast region, IMR program at Cobalt, and helped transform them into a more data-centric organization. He comes to Pure Cars from 22 Squared, where he was the Director of Analytics, working uniquely with Southeast Toyota. So Jeff's a huge resource for us here at Pure Cars and a wealth of knowledge on all things data, and so we're very, very excited to hear from Jeff today. Jeff, why don't you take it away?
Thanks. I appreciate that, Joe. Let's go ahead and jump right into using data strategically. So let's actually start with a little bit of levity. So for those that can see the screen, this is an easy reminder. It's one of my favorite cartoons, but it helps illustrate that we're all coming from different places, and that the collection and incorporation of data into the decision-making process is new for many of our clients, and that there is a whole new language out there that is to be learned, and that we all need to sometimes slow down. This is speaking to myself included, but also from a client side, we all urge you to ask questions, because if there's something that is misunderstood, then it really doesn't do anybody any good. And I think personally, having the benefit of working now and coming from data-driven companies where data really is at the core of who they are, it's easy to take for granted the data collection that we do here at Pure Cars and how fundamental it is to everything we do. But ultimately, it's really just the first part of a larger picture in employing data strategically. And ultimately, this webinar is really about how do you use data to inform your strategy, right? And that's another way to put that is nobody needs any more data. Right? We are all buried in data today. Data is not the answer. And I want to step back maybe just a bit before we get started to make sure that we all understand that the employing of data really is a process of turning data to analysis, right? Applying insight to that analysis. That insight then drives strategy, and that leads to results. So when we here at Pure Cars talk about data, or when you hear things about big data, you do want to ask yourself, how is it that you can use that data, and am I putting appropriate resources in place for the analysis and the insight and the strategy that's ultimately going to drive results from that data. So with 40% of the U.S. marketing professionals saying that they're increasing spending in data-driven marketing, this is one of those kind of everybody is doing it type quotes. Again, I just urge you to also emphasize the importance of to incorporate this in your advertising strategy is key. It is not uncommon for us here at Pure Cars to have clients come data and then the strategy that they've developed out of that data, which we feel is flawed or misguided. It's kind of a common example would be the looking at Google Analytics, looking at total sessions or total visits. That does not necessarily correlate to sales. We've had clients here in the past put a lot of emphasis or overemphasize what we would consider as spammy traffic providers in lieu of adding those or emphasizing those that are providing low-level engagement. So in summary, don't skip the analysis and the insight phase. It's more than just data. And again, as a leadership of the dealerships, as those of us who lead, it is up to us to really challenge those existing assumptions and to make sure that we're employing those that can provide some insight out of that data. So that was my little soapbox. So why is digital so important? Well, we know that there's 24 different touch points across the automotive journey. 19 of those are digital. Well, what that means is that the auto shopper today is leaving a trail of breadcrumbs advertisers can manage, right? And these breadcrumbs are used to increase efficiency. And ultimately, this data usage and this employing of data strategically is really about increasing efficiency in ad spend. I know this is an election year, it's an Olympic year, costs are up for those that are doing traditional media. Increasingly more dollars are being moved online, right, to this digital space. And in order to be successful with digital, you really need to start making decisions based upon this data. And again, going back to that original cartoon, is that this is a new language for many, and that I'm going to give you 3 quick ways today on how to utilize that data. And again, hopefully to target smarter. So quickly, what inventory am I targeting and why? Geography, where am I targeting and why? And then who am I targeting? And instead of talking about the entire audience segments that are out there, all of the audience segments, we're going to talk about behavioral. And behavioral, which is sometimes called BT, or for behavioral targeting, is a form of audience segmentation that's widely used within the space. Just and quickly, audience segmentation, grouping together of similar-minded shoppers, right, or creating subgroups of those users that behave the same. So most people are employing a strategy of remarketing. This is a form of audience segmentation for those that you've done business with or those that have come to your site. Demographic is another one, based upon, say, income, age. Psychographic, based upon their interest. And then media usage, which is really behavioral, which is following that individual around or targeting them uniquely based upon their online shopping or their online behavior. So let's jump right into the inventory targeting. And I think first it's a question of, do you know how your inventory is being targeted today? That's a question that I think everyone needs to ask themselves if they're in the dealer world or in the advertising space. How are you advertising? I'm going to go through a quick little video here, which is unfortunately an all too common problem we see within the space. Maybe I am. There we go. So this is someone searching for a BMW 3 Series near me, and you'll see results that pop up for an ad. That ad is then taking someone to a landing page which has no price, or excuse me, no photos. So this is really all about inventory merchandising, and let's cover some of the basics of inventory merchandising, because again, this is a problem that we see all too often. At a basic level, would you place an ad in the newspaper that had a price that said call for price? It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Or would you put an ad in the newspaper that had a photo that was coming soon? Well, no, of course not, right? That's ludicrous. Well, that's exactly what's happening across the digital ecosystem today, where search and display and other targeting to VDP pages that are setting up for a poor user experience. And again, a very simple tactic to start incorporating data would be to say, are you doing this today? Are you targeting vehicles that are missing photos? Are you targeting vehicles that are missing price? And are you communicating these vehicles with and without price or photos to your digital advertising partners? In other words, are you leaving it up to them to exclude these items And do you know if this is actually happening or not? It's a really simple point, and this is really one of the block and tackling or the basics for inventory targeting. Another inventory targeting option, or say, is really about increasing the efficiency using inventory filters. And this example is also, it's all too common, but we'll do searches, for example, of say used Jeep for sale. And if a dealership is advertising their used inventory, in this example we have a BMW dealer who's advertising or showing ads for used Jeeps. So they've got one Jeep in stock. Now we have to ask ourselves, in a world that we live in of finite resources, right? Our pockets are not endlessly deep. So does it make sense for this BMW store to be advertising for used Jeeps when they have only one? I can't really answer that definitively, but this is a question that you should be asking yourselves out there, is what are you targeting? Now, if this BMW store is known for Jeeps and that's what they do, but they just happen to have one, maybe. But this query doesn't define if I'm looking for a Jeep Patriot, a Jeep Wrangler, Cherokee, again, whatever it may be. And the odds of the VDP or the SRP showing me what I'm looking for is not good the fewer inventory that I have in stock. And this is where, through the use of inventory filters, there are vendors out in this space that can create rules for you that say, only advertise used models or used makes if I've got, say, 3 or more in stock, 4 or more in stock. And these are the types of filters that can ultimately add efficiency, so you're not really wasting dollars within the space and really driving nothing more than bounced visits, or a visit where someone is hitting the back button because the vehicle doesn't match what they're looking for. Another one is another strategy for inventory data is using market data. So this is beyond photo and price and beyond filters, but looking at the inventory turn. So this data has really, over the last say decade or so, come to the forefront with vendors such as vAuto, First Look, and others that again do a great job of empowering the dealership with data that they can use to again affect strategy. Well, we do the same thing here at Pure Cars, and it's important for you to understand how your vendor is using that same data to advertise vehicles. Let's say some concrete examples. If you are a Honda dealer today, you probably don't need to advertise pilots. Right? Again, I'm speaking somewhat generally, and that some might. But pilots are probably selling themselves today, and they're probably turning within a handful of days once they hit your lot. Again, in the world of finite resources, would it make better sense to put the ad spend that's dedicated toward pilots over to Accords and Civics, where maybe there's 100 and plus in stock? And again, that's a question that I can't answer definitively, but it's a question that you need to be asking your vendors out there in the space. And again, it's a good example here too of, we have a Toyota that there's 109 of them in this dealer's inventory. There's about almost 1,200 of them within the market, and that's about a 50-mile radius. So if the vehicle is merchandised well, it's got price, it's got photos, it's priced below market, but the turn is still above the market average of say 55 versus say the market average of 47, what else might be going on with that vehicle? Right? Does it make sense to take a look at other strategies to help move this vehicle besides simply throwing more digital dollars at vehicles that are merchandised well? On inventory targeting, there's nothing worse than a bad user experience for shoppers out there. It costs you money. But again, it costs you money, and it's really a horrible user experience. It's tough to get these people back. Make sure your campaign targeting is efficient and aligned with your go-to-market strategy. Again, make sure your filters are aligned so that you know, or your vendors know, what you want to be advertising and what you don't, or at least ask their input. And then lastly, the market data, what's moving, what's not, can really help you target more efficiently. And again, this is really all about efficiency, and that in a world of non-finite resources, let's apply those dollars where they can make the most sense. Geo-targeting. Again, this is a kind of basic concept. At least we think it is, or you would think it is. But zip code targeting has really come a long way since the obligatory 10-mile, 15-mile radius that we used to see within search or display. And that the zip code data segmentation really provides another layer of targeting that we can use to affect strategy. So I think first off, the simple question is, do you know where your ads are firing today? And do you know why your provider is choosing to serve those ads within those zips? There are many reasons why that could be. I suggest that sold data is a great reason for targeting, in that your past success is typically a good indicator of future results. But there could also be opportunities within the space that may be hidden because of existing targeting practices, where again there could be opportunities missed. So some other things to consider within the geo-targeting realm would be things such as income or demographic data around the user, population data as well. Just like you would use in your boardroom, your pump-in, pump-out reporting, your cross-sell reporting, and other third-party data sets that you get, is your provider able to incorporate that data, or are you sharing it? And if you did, would they know what to do with it once they got it? So again, there is some really good data out there on sales and geo-targeting that needs to be passed and shared if it's not incorporated directly into the, say, the vendor's API. So to quickly recap on geo-targeting, focus on the zip codes that are most likely to convert. And this makes it sound simple, but find out what zips are converting, and let's try to identify the why. Don't restrict your zip targeting to a simple radius around your dealership. Again, that is a kind of legacy concept. Look at the zip level data within your market and employ other, say, audience segments across the top, or other demographic information around that sold data, such as income, demand, population, and more. Ultimately, be strategic. So again, don't just take this data and try to turn it into strategy, but let's apply some analysis and some insight into that data. Let's agree on those conclusions, and then let's employ it to make money for the dealerships. And the last one I'm going to cover is behavioral targeting. Behavioral targeting is really nothing more than, again, as I said before, lumping the homogeneous audience or a similar audience into a subset that can be targeted, say, more effectively and more efficiently. So it's a technique that online publishers and advertisers use based upon a user's web browsing behavior. So pages they visited, sites that they've gone to, in some cases advertisements or ads that they've clicked on. And if you think, say, mailers from a service marketing campaign, this is a form of audience segmentation from your existing CRMs or those that have come to your drive. This is really the same type of concept, but it's those that have yet to visit your site or those that have yet to do business with you. So it's targeting based upon online behavior, but this behavior is all typically prospecting. In other words, they have yet to come to your site. So let's run through an example. So here we have someone, a shopper, that has searched on Google for red hybrid compact cars. They've then visited websites about hybrids. They've seen videos on compact hybrids. They've shared information on Facebook about hybrids, or maybe they've even read blog articles about hybrids or the pros and cons, etc. So this is someone who is clearly in the market for a hybrid, right? Or someone that would be behaviorally categorized in a compact hybrid market. In fact, they'd be categorize this across multiple different places. Google, probably YouTube with the videos, Facebook for certain, and other ad networks where they may have visited, where they have researched this content. So this auto intender category needs to be broken down. So what we like to do here at PureCars is break this auto intender down into unique segments. For example, hybrids. You wouldn't want to show someone who's searching for a hybrid the latest pickup truck that's for sale, right? And the converse is also true. So here's an example of a behaviorally targeted ad. This is someone who was searching for a Mercedes, and this happens to be on Facebook, but the same would apply throughout the entire web ecosystem, where Facebook allows you to target behaviorally. Here's an example again of someone who's searching for a Mercedes-Benz and is receiving an ad for a Mercedes-Benz, right? So and there are many different hooks that you can employ, whether it be price drops or other call to actions. But really the key is adding relevancy to the targeting. If someone's looking for Mercedes, serve them Mercedes content. If they're looking for hybrid, serve them hybrid contents. It sounds basic, but this is often missed across the space, and it's an easy form of gaining that efficiency. So to recap, for behavioral or BT, create audience segments that work, create those segments for improved efficiency, and then measure those across. You will get different performance across the different audience segments that you create even within behavioral. Use what you know about the shopper, which is really about being relevant. If they're watching videos for compacts, serve them compacts. If they're Mercedes, serve them Mercedes ads. The goal being to keep squeezing out that efficiency across the channels. So some key takeaways. Again, these are questions that I urge you to ask your provider. Do you know where it is being marketed, and do you know who you're targeting? So this is again, it's very basic, but these questions can lead to greater understanding around the data that you have, and then how that data is being, with the insights that are being formed out of that data, the analysis that's being done. And ultimately it's that insight and then the strategy which is going to win the war, and it's going to ultimately drive that shopper to the sale. That's what I have today. I know that was short and sweet as promised. Let's open it up to questions.
Okay. We do have a few questions on the line here. Give me just 1 second to sort through them. Okay, so Jeff, the first question here is, does PureCars automate analytics?
Yes and no. We automate the collection of analytics where we can. There are some certainly circumstances where a machine can collect information a whole lot more efficiently than a person can. So we automate again where we can, but we have yet to. There's really nothing that replaces the human intelligence or the human experience. So we have algorithms and models that we use, but analytics is ultimately something about using that analysis, to make strategic changes. So there really is no easy button within the space. So I guess to answer the question, where we can, we do automate, but there is there's not an easy button out there to be found.
Okay. Great. Another question from the audience. You said that analytics is a leadership problem. What did you mean by that?
Well, yeah. So this comes from the beginning of the deck, where ultimately analytics has value when the change leaders at an organization are the business leaders, right? It's the leadership that is that is employed to drive that change, right, strategically. So when an organization embraces, they're really embracing change, which is, again, not the same as collecting data. And I think that's probably where that question comes from. It's that analytics is a leadership problem, in that it's ultimately up to the leadership to define the conditions to best employ the data that's collected and the insights that are gained. In other words, it's a department problem. It's not a data science problem, or it's not an IT problem. It's really starts from the top down. I think that.
We did have a question about, are you able to, I assume, it's saying, are we able to target by census tract?
We look at census tracts. We look at population data. So the simple answer is yes.
Perfect. All right. One more question. What is the right mix of targeting, and where should I allocate my dollars? Not daughters, dollars.
That's a different question. There is no. I'm gonna take a high road here and say, without knowing what the strategy is for a particular dealership, it's really impossible for me to say what they should be doing. But if you want to email webinars@purecars.com, then with your name and information, then we can certainly do an analysis and ask some questions and again provide an audit for your dealership. So again, webinars@purecars.com, and we can be in touch.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up. Haven't seen any other questions come through. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, and we are excited that you have chosen to be with us. And I think we have one more slide. We do have another webinar coming up. There it is. We do have another webinar coming up on the 8th of September, and that is going to be with our Director of Marketing, Nancy Lim, and she's going to be talking about your virtual showroom, creating a strong online presence. And so would love for you to register for that. And thank you again for joining the Pure Cars webinar, and we look forward to seeing you next time.